What's going on, guys? Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well as you can be after that game, if you're still awake, frankly. But welcome back. Thank you for joining me this evening. Welcome back to the full-time view. If you haven't seen, you can see it on the screen. You would have seen it on the thumbnail. I'm sure you were watching the game, but if you were not, it was Manchester United 1, Chelsea 1 at Old Trafford on today, Thursday, the 28th of April. I'm on my own, folks. I'm on my own this evening. I've gone from a studio full of people back to the land of Narnia, and I'm all by myself. So you're going to have to keep me company here this evening. But we can still have a lot of fun. There's still plenty to talk about. Be sure to get involved in the chat. We'll get your comments up on the screen. Be sure to smash a like on the like button as well. Be sure to subscribe to bottom right-hand corner. I don't even know what number we're on now. 102K. I don't know what the next target is, it must be said. But hey, it all counts. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. As I mentioned, get your comments in. We'll get them up on the screen as well. So as I mentioned, Manchester United 1, Chelsea 1. I mean, I honestly, I don't know how. Realistically, I don't know how that game ended up as 1-1. Ray Diaz is correct. Says Owen by himself because everyone is intimidated by his height. This is actually factually accurate, Ray. There was meant to be more guests. They're actually here, but they're just too short. They're too short to be up with me in my box. So I said, look, only people that can come here on the stream this evening are people that are my height or taller. So the only guy would be Ajax, and he's not here. The guy's a giant. He's what, 6'7"? It's unbelievable. So yes, so I'm on my own this evening. Ball to Feet says Ranić to Austria. Yeah, we're going to talk about that too. There is plenty to talk about here, so we'll get right into it. As I mentioned for the game, look, I really, what more needs to be said? Honestly, we knew the game was a dead rubber. Didn't we? We knew this was two sides with nothing at all to play for. You look at Chelsea; they're comfortable in their position in the league. Yes, there's a lot of turmoil going on at Stamford Bridge and Chelsea at the moment with the ownership situation. So their focus and their priorities are definitely not on tonight's game. They're just going towards the cup final. That's all they're thinking about, the FA Cup final. And they know that third place is theirs and it's secured. And their focus is, okay, who's going to be our next owner? What's going to be going on? All that kind of stuff. We know that's happening. Then on the other hand, you've got Manchester United. Shocking season. Awful. Every single week, they're terrible. Leaks coming out of the dressing room. An interim manager. Just chaos at that club. Top four hopes over. Their season completely fizzled out. Nothing to play for. And it was a game that really felt like that. You know, it felt like a game that there was nothing involved in it, nothing to play for. I'm not sure that Chelsea truly ever got out of third gear, would you say, guys? I mean, Thomas Tuchel will be really disappointed. I'm sure he will be, because he'll be coming out of that game saying, how on earth haven't we won? Like 1-1, it's a disgrace because Manchester United are terrible and were not that great tonight. I saw Nemanja Matic come out after the game. I was watching his interview after the game, talking to Sky Sports, and he was saying, I think I got the quotes here, it was an improvement. We played against a very good team. Maybe they had more opportunities than us, but 1-1 is a fair result. Tonight looked much better than the last couple of weeks. We showed we didn't give up and showed good character, so it was a good reaction from our team. And look, Nemanja's leaving in the summer, and for what he's, done since he's come here. I mean, he hasn't won really anything, I don't think. It was Mourinho's second season, I think. So I don't actually think he won a trophy at Old Trafford. But I could not disagree anymore. It did not look any different from what we've seen in previous weeks. It still was defensively shambolic. It was still lethargic. There was still no work ethic. They were still lazy. And at times it was really embarrassing. And I think if we were going up against a side that did have something to play for, maybe... Chelsea's a weird one at the moment, because I think Flex Matisse said it really well in the preview as well, that they're a side that's third, but you never know what you're going to get with Chelsea at the moment, and they are wasteful, and it is they are a side that can go through a game like this and make it 1-1, but they'll be really disappointed that Thomas Tuchel will be really disappointed with that, because they should have had 4 or 5 goals this evening. If it's not for David De Gea, who does what he does pulls off 2 or 3 fantastic saves, keeps Manchester United in the game. If you had Kai Havertz, who on a different day had a bit more quality when it comes to finishing, he missed a couple of chances or quality in the final pass, Man United would have conceded 4 or 5 goals. But when it comes to United, they never cease to amaze you, do they? Because I don't think, and this is the thing, when you went into this game tonight, I think a lot of people probably thought United are going to lose. I thought United were going to lose going into this game. You certainly weren't going into it with any sense of optimism, because there's nothing really to be optimistic about this season. Next season, maybe. And there's cautious optimism. But you knew, hey, look, United aren't going to play well. It's going to be one of those games. But even that, even though you knew they weren't going to play well, even though you knew that they weren't going to really apply themselves that much, watching, especially in that first half, what we saw, they never, ever, ever cease to amaze. They don't. You've got maybe David De Gea and Cristiano Ronaldo that can hold their heads up high after that performance because, well, the only starters that can hold their heads up high, some of the people that did come off the bench, I thought did okay. Juan Mata again comes on. It's nearly the end of April in 2022. Mata comes on and he actually looks decent. That's where we're at, folks. But De Gea and Ronaldo, they can hold their heads high. But does that sound familiar? That is the story of the season. That is the story of Manchester United's season. Disappointment. De Gea makes saves. Ronaldo scores goals. Maybe the other positive is that Garnacho came on for his debut. Apart from that, honestly, even though we didn't lose the game, and maybe some will say, oh, and you're really going in hard considering we drew that game, we got a point. But honestly, at this point, when are we going to stop saying that kind of stuff? I mean, because it was embarrassing, really embarrassing at times. And we'll go into the players individually. Marcus Rashford, look, sometimes some of the stick that Marcus Rashford has got this season, in my opinion, I've gone, it's maybe a little bit too far, right? Sometimes a little bit too much. But what I saw, or what I didn't see from Marcus Rashford this evening was honestly really sad. I mean, I'm not sure how to best describe it. In that first half, you saw a player that I don't even know if it's confidence anymore with him, because I've seen him play in recent weeks and months this season where you do get the impression that he was trying, but just the quality wasn't there or the confidence wasn't there. And you go, man, that's a guy that's really struggling right now. That's a guy that's just so out of form. And every time he touches the ball, he looks scared and he just can't get it right. Rashford can't get it right. That wasn't the case tonight. This wasn't a Marcus Rashford that's low on confidence and just doesn't have the quality. Tonight was a Marcus Rashford that couldn't be bothered. And that's a big statement to make for any professional football player. But we saw Marcus Rashford specifically in that first half walking around the pitch. On social media, I went in on Alex Telles because I thought Telles was defending abysmally in that first half. And he was just getting dominated by Reece James. He bullied by Reece James down United's left-hand side. And I was saying, man, this guy's not defending well. And he wasn't defending well. He was sliding around and he was misplacing passes like everyone in this Man United side. But then when you sort of take a step back, you go, wait a minute. Because there was a couple of instances where it was so blindingly obvious that Reece James is there, but Mason Mount would pull out to the gaps, and Telles didn't know what to do because Sonny's got 2 Chelsea players. Does he commit to the ball? Does he stick his position? And you've got Rashford there, who is just refusing at that point to do anything. He's walking, he's jogging, the most half-hearted press that you would ever see in your life. And he's happy for the ball to be crossed in the box. He's happy for them to get an opportunity. Almost like he was happy for him to score. And that's when you go, okay, that's not a confidence thing. That's not a Ralph Rangnick doesn't like me thing. That's not a I didn't have a preseason thing. That's a I can't be bothered thing. Because there was a guy that wasn't trying. He was walking. And that is embarrassing. And, these are professional, emphasis on professional footballers. What some people were doing out there tonight was not very professional at all. And it was sad. It was really, really sad. And I look at reports of PSG are interested in me. Barcelona are interested in me. Do you think that any team worth their salt would look at a player like that and go, oh, yeah, we want to bring him in? I get Marcus Rashford on his day is a good player, right? And who knows if he's hit his ceiling at this point. But any top team will not buy a player that isn't going to run or is not willing to run. And if he's not running because I don't know if he's in a bad mood with Ralph Rangnick, that's even worse. Once you step across the white line, you go on the pitch, you give it your all, you play for the shirt. I know I sound like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, folks, but it's true. It's true. At this point, that's how bad the season's been. All we want is for them to try. All we want is for them to run, and they can't do that. They can't even do that. And him just refusing to do any semblance of defensive work was shambolic. And that work ethic and attitude on the pitch was just, it was insane. And that's why I say that it was a draw and it was 1-1. But how? I don't know. Because at points we were playing, and again, it's not just Rashford. There were several players on that pitch doing that. Rashford was just a standout. So how we drew that game? Well, it's because we've got Cristiano Ronaldo and David De Gea. And Chelsea weren't at their best, anywhere near their best. And it's very sad because, and I said it on the, I think it was Monday. We did a news video on Monday when it comes to Marcus Rashford. And from my perspective, all I hear is excuses. I'm sure we'll get more in the next week, maybe tomorrow. Maybe we'll get him tomorrow, or we'll get him over the next month or so. Ralph Rangnick doesn't rate me. I'm not part of Ralph Rangnick's plans, or I'm looking forward to working with Erik ten Hag, and I want to open contract negotiations. And I didn't have a pre-season, remember, too. And I've been shifted around. Sometimes I'm a left winger, sometimes I'm a right winger, sometimes I don't play. I'm not playing for England. When are their excuses going to stop? When is it going to be? Actually, I'm not playing well. Because just walking around the pitch at points today, or not committing to do your defensive work, that isn't because you didn't have a preseason. That's because you can't be bothered. There's a big difference between that. Now, well, I'm not just going to make this the Bash Marcus show, because a lot of players didn't play well. And again, I know I'm preaching to the choir at this point, right? We know that none of these players are playing very well or particularly care that much. I mentioned it at halftime with KG. Shout out to KG. Great match for you as always. Some of those comments about the hairline I particularly enjoyed. I very much particularly enjoyed. So big up the United View community. But I said it to KG at halftime that I hate to be that person that will say this person gets paid X amount per week and they can't do this, or they won't do this, and all that kind of stuff, because I'm always of the view of, well, that's United's fault for being willing to pay them, right? They just signed their name to that contract. Good for them. They got that deal. But where is your professional pride? Where's your, not even professional, where's your pride at all? I'd be embarrassed. I've played Sunday league matches. I played in goal, but I've played Sunday league matches. And if someone wasn't willing to run, they got taken off in then, and the manager had to go at them. How dare you? And that's Sunday league. This is Premier League stuff. Premier League standard, the elite level. And you've got players throwing the toys at the pram, right? I don't want to run around. I don't do running around here. And when you've got attitudes or performances like that, that's when I think, from an Erik ten Hag perspective, you can't coach those players. You cannot coach them, because if you've got a player that's frankly unwilling to run, then they're unwilling to learn too. And we know that there's going to be a mass exodus in the summer. We know that players are going to be leaving, like Matic, like all of these players, like Cavani, like whoever, because their contracts are expiring, and Paul Pogba. But there are still going to be players there that have put in performances like tonight that, again, don't want to do anything. And for me, they can't be coached in the way that Ten Hag will want to coach them. And I'm not saying I don't know if Ten Hag's going to come in and sell Marcus Rashford. I expect Rashford to be involved next season. But I think he needs to have a good, hard look at himself. I really, truly do. And I think we need to hear less of these reports about reasons as to why Marcus isn't playing well, and more about Marcus Rashford taking the responsibility on himself to improve and get better. I don't want to hear excuses anymore. When do they stop? When Erik ten Hag comes in, and if Rashford's not playing well and he goes on the bench, do we hear that again? Well, this manager doesn't like me, so that's why I'm not playing very well. No. Okay? It doesn't work like that. Take some accountability, improve, and go from there. And that's just, again, I sat there shaking my head. It was embarrassing. It really was. I mentioned Matic and McTominay. They were the two defensive midfielders tonight. Matic got the assist for the Ronaldo goal, which was a decent pass. I'll give him credit for that. But at points in that game, for a team that was playing with two defensive midfielders, ball-winning midfielders, the gaps were bigger than the box that I'm trapped in right now. I'm like a mime. I wish I could be better at that. But the gaps were incredible. I mean, for a Premier League standard, and not just like Premier League standard, for meant to be one of the, the two of the top teams in this league, your defensive midfielders being that far apart and it's playing balls through. It was incredible. I mean, staggering doesn't do it justice at points. And I think there was a stat saying that McTominay's, it's here. Apparently, McTominay's first successful pass of the second half came in the 80th minute. It was just a game that everyone was checked out. Everyone. And the fans, the atmosphere was like a library in Old Trafford for various reasons. Obviously, there were protests before the game as the players were coming out onto the pitch. Had a big Glazers out sign, which is always good to see. But the atmosphere was also very quiet and very reserved and very flat, not just because of the protests, but it was flat because what they were watching wasn't worth cheering for. What the season itself is not worth cheering for. Can you blame them? I know people could say when you go to the stadium, you support the players, and I think they did. But it's a reciprocal kind of situation, isn't it? You have to give the fans something to cheer about. And when they're not running around, there ain't a lot to really cheer that much about, right? And that was the frustration. And when it comes to Cristiano Ronaldo, look, Cristiano Ronaldo, you know what is interesting with him? He is certainly playing better, isn't he? I think there was a period of time where fans were getting onto him earlier this season, calling him the problem and all that kind of stuff. And I would never say that I felt that Ronaldo was the problem. And I said this several times on whether they were full views or news videos or whatever, that I always felt remiss to criticize Ronaldo because he still was, without him at points this season, we would have gotten just nowhere near even where we are right now. So I was always remiss to criticize him. But I think it was also fair to say that at points this season, he was playing bad. You can't shy away from that. There was a stretch of games where he didn't score. And the issue is that we had no alternative. So we had to continue persisting with him and playing him at 37 years of age when he needed time out the side, and we just couldn't give that to him. Now, it does look to be a somewhat reinvigorated Ronaldo, doesn't it? Of I'm playing in this side that's just completely awful and terrible, but I'm going to keep pushing on. I'm going to keep driving on. Why? Because he's a professional, because he cares. And that's what ultimately we just want at this point. We know we're not getting top four. We know this season's shit. We know that with 3 games remaining, Manchester United right now can only equal their worst ever Premier League season when it comes to points. Equal. We can't better it. We can only equal our worst season ever. And yet you've still got Ronaldo at 37 years of age. If there was anyone that could check out and say, you know what, enough's enough, I can't be bothered, it's Cristiano Ronaldo, because he shouldn't have to put up with this kind of shit. But he said, no, I'm going to continue on, because guess what? I still want to achieve things. I think he's, 3 goals away from 20 goals in the Premier League this season. I think he's pretty much scored 20 league goals in pretty much all of his seasons for 20 years or something ridiculous. He still has standards. Why can't everyone else? Because he's Cristiano Ronaldo, because that's what a professional footballer should be. Now, does he at times petulant? Absolutely, yes. But, in situations like today, he still puts a shift in. And if anything, I think his work rate's actually increased. If there was anyone that you looked at some of the games in the last couple of weeks and said, that guy's playing to impress Erik ten Hag, it's Cristiano Ronaldo. Because he's showing more than just, one of the criticisms with Ronaldo earlier on this season, right, was that he wasn't doing much apart from just sort of sticking between the two centre backs, which ideally he probably should do because he's 37 and his best attribute now is finishing. But he should just stick there. But because we just didn't create anything, he was so isolated. At this point, he's gone, you know what? I will try and do it all myself. And he is. And he is. And where we would be without him, I really don't know. Nate H with the super chat, appreciate the contribution, says McTominay just ball chases like it's a youth match. McTominay, I mean, everyone was just poor, really, really poor. I'm seeing a lot of stuff about this, these Ralph Rangnick comments. So let's have a look at what Ralph Rangnick has said. Ralph Rangnick was asked by Sky after the game about reports linking him to the Austria job. So if you're not familiar or aware, this one's a really curious one because there was a report about a month ago, maybe, I would say about a month ago, saying that Ralph Rangnick had had an interview or had met with the Austrian FA about taking the national team job. And very, very quickly, the Austrian FA actually tweeted, not true, Ralph Rangnick, we've never met with Ralph Rangnick, nothing to see here. And then a month later, he's just about to take the job. I think that meeting may have happened, folks. I mean, I'm just going out on a limb there. I think that meeting might have happened. So about an hour and a half before kickoff, it came out that Ralph Rangnick was set to be unveiled as the new Austrian head coach in the next 24 to 48 hours. Reportedly, it was not going to affect his consultancy role with Manchester United. It was going to be a dual role because he's only going to be working 6 days a month, which allows you plenty of time to be the head coach of a national side. So when asked about these reports linking him to the Austria job, this is what Rangnick had to say, quote, I am more than happy and willing to help Manchester United. He also said, I will definitely continue with Manchester United and the consultancy role. So I don't know if he's actually officially confirmed that he is going to be taking that role, but he's confirmed that he's going to be staying at Manchester United. Now, there is lots of different ways to look at this, right? Because you could look at this. And this was kind of my initial reaction. And I feel like I've been spending too much time around with KG when I think about this. Because if Ralph Rangnick's been very vocal in his press conferences in the last few weeks and in his interviews, saying that it's very obvious what the problems are at the club. And we've seen those reports about him pushing hard for Paul Mitchell to come in as head of recruitment and offering himself more than just being a consultant, if you will, saying that, you know, I'm happy to help as much as people want me to help and as much as people want to listen to my opinion. Taking on the national team job of Austria seems to me like a guy who maybe finally found out what this consultancy role actually means, what this consultancy role actually consists of. Maybe he's had finally the conversation. He did so many press conferences when they asked him, what does that consultancy role look like? What does the advisor role look like at the end of the season? And he would always say, we haven't had that conversation right now. I'm sure we'll have it towards the end of the season or once the season's finished. We'll have that conversation. I think maybe, just maybe, they might have had that conversation. And the conversation is, Ralph, we appreciate everything you've done. We appreciate all the things that you're pointing out and continue to point out. But as a consultant, you will be working 6 days a month. If we want or need your opinion, we will have you on retainer, if you will, and we'll give you a call. And Ralph's gone, okay, I offered myself to be available a little bit more. I offered myself to be more heavily involved in this rebuild that you have next season. I offered myself to maybe work with Paul Mitchell, in tandem with Paul Mitchell, in the recruitment department. And I've also then been told, you know what, actually, 6 days a month, that's all I'm needed for. And he's gone, well, if you only need me 6 days a month, I'll be the Austrian national team coach then as well. Because he would not take that job if Manchester United said to him, look, you're really, really, really important. We need you a lot more frequently next season, and we need you when it comes to recruitment and all that other stuff. That's my feeling. That's my feeling about that. And he's saying that he's still committed, and he will still be committed to Manchester United, I'm sure, but as a consultant. And I don't like to pat myself on the back, folks, and say I told you so, but this is why I kind of every time we heard these people say, right, Ralph's going to be heavily involved, or even though it's not going well this season, Ralph's going to be building us next season, I just went, I don't know, because it doesn't feel like that. He's never come across as a guy that Manchester United want to have around a lot next season. I think they like the fact that he's available to them on their beck and call on the phone. I think they like the fact that if a situation comes up, or they maybe want an extra opinion on a player, or they want some advice of, hey, Ralph, when you were the manager last season, what did you think about this? Or maybe we should do it this way, or let's have a bit of experience. They like the idea of having Ralph on retainer Ralph, and getting his opinion once in a blue moon. But in reality, they still think they know best. And that's the situation. And I still do think he can play a role, absolutely, because he's been with the players 6 months. So he absolutely can still play a role, because he can still be in contact with Erik ten Hag. He can still make this dossier that we've heard about all these players, and that will be invaluable to Erik ten Hag, because that's a head start that he probably wouldn't have got otherwise. I think it's a missed opportunity. I've said before that I think Ralph should be around more next season. Especially now, I was always skeptical, because I would say, where is the position for him? He's the last decade, was it 2 out of the last 10 years he's been a manager? The rest of the time he's been a sporting director. And I looked at Manchester United and say, but we've got a director of football, John Murtough. We've got a technical director. Whether you like them or not, you think they're good. There are people in that role. And that makes it difficult for someone just to come in and take that role, especially if they're well-liked in the club. You have to think of it from a political point of view. So I would always say with Ralph, where does he fit? If he was going to be in there more often next season, where does he fit in all of that kind of stuff? And then once the chief scout and the head of global scouting they were let go, they were fired, released, decided to move on, mutually uncoupled, whatever you want to call it. I thought, brilliant. That's the spot for Ralph. The guy has built teams. Like, his best 11 of players he signed in his career is outrageous. Whether it's Mane, who's getting talked about winning the Ballon d'Or, whether it's Werner, whether it's Neuer, whether it's Upamecano, whether it's Erling Haaland, the list goes on and on. Add in Paul Mitchell, it just makes too much sense. It makes way too much sense that they would all be involved in that recruitment department. And maybe Ralph will still give his opinion, but in terms of an extended period of time at Manchester United next year, we're not going to see it. He will be a consultant. And you would probably say that if he's going to be 6 days a month, then his primary focus will be the Austrian national team. And occasionally Manchester United will give him a call. And it does make you wonder, doesn't it, okay, then what was all of this for? What was it all for? I guess the aim obviously was to get in the top 4, but it's just, that's the cherry on top of the season, really, isn't it? A season just filled with failure, even to the point of the interim manager that we got in, and we then had him as a consultant. Even that's he's not really consulting all that much. The interim manager's focus next season isn't actually going to be on Manchester United. We thought when we got Rangnick in as an interim manager, it's great, because the really important thing is that 2-year consultancy. And even that, his main focus is on the Austrian national team. Even that is a failure. And that just goes to show up. That just sums up Manchester United this season, doesn't it? It really does. I don't even know where Austria in the World Cup next season. I'm not sure. Let's have a look, see what else he said. So far, me and Erik ten Hag haven't spoken, but I'm more than happy and willing to help and change things for the better. The Manchester United consultancy role would leave space for another job, but is what we agreed in November last year. So he's saying that basically this consultancy role would leave space for another job, but that is what we agreed in November last year. So I don't know. All of it sort of, to me, sort of smells like, because Rangnick, you have to remember, Rangnick asked for that consultancy role by all accounts. He was approached by Manchester United in October, November, when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was sacked. They said, we want you to be interim manager to the end of the season. He said, I don't want to be like with Chelsea. I don't want to be an interim manager unless you can give me something else afterwards. I want to be at the club long term. And they said, okay, you can be the interim manager, and then you can be you can be in an advisory role. You can be a consultant for 2 years. And I think the idea was, we don't know really what that is, but basically, if you do us good, we'll find something for you. We'll take care of you for the next 2 years. And push has come to shove now, and they've kind of gone, well, we don't really know what it is. Um, and Ralph's gone, well, I'm happy to stick around more often next season. I'm happy to give you my opinion. I mean, I've been working with these players for 6 months. In addition to my vast experience of building clubs for the better, I've been at clubs all across Europe in terms of an executive side of things, in terms of rebuilds, in terms of transfers, in terms of building clubs up from the ground up. I've got that experience. I'm happy to be around a bit more often. And United are basically going, eh, keep your phone on. Yeah. Maybe keep your phone on and we'll call you. You know what that means, right? It's like when you go to an interview and afterwards they go, yeah, okay, I really appreciate some of your comments. We'll be in touch. And then you walk out afterwards and then you get back home. Like, how did the interview go? They said they'd be in touch. And then the person goes, really? Yeah. Keep checking your phone, So good for him. Good for him having the Austrian national team job. Again, I don't know if they're in the World Cup. Could you imagine? Let's have a look. I don't think they are. Because if they were in the World Cup, imagine they knocked out England or whatever. World Cup 2022. This is the good thing about when I'm live, when I'm on my own, because I can just completely derail the stream. I don't think they are. I don't recall seeing that they were in there. Austria. Well, why would they be? Why? They're not. They're not. I was thinking, to be honest, if they had qualified, why is Ralph getting that job? Because whoever got them qualified should have got that job. As it says there, Austria didn't qualify for the World Cup, so Ralph could spend more time with United, and when internationals kick in, he may coach and afterwards will be a consultant. It just all sort of, again, it's all chaos. That's with United this season, isn't it? It's all constant chaos. Let's talk about some of the match stats as well, because it's always interesting to see that. Once again, for next season is going to be a possession-based side. We got absolutely dominated in possession. They had 65% possession. We had 35. We had 35% possession, folks, at home. And what's wild about that is, so if you have 35% possession, you would think, right, well, we didn't have a lot of the ball, but at least when we had it, our passing accuracy will be good. Our passing accuracy was 78%. But that's not really, to be honest, if you did watch the game, it's not a surprising stat because we couldn't keep hold of the ball at all. McTominay gave it away. Bruno gave it away. Matic gave it away. Rashford gave it away. It's no shock. It's no surprise. And again, this is why Thomas Tuchel will be so frustrated with that result, is that Chelsea had 21 shots to Manchester United's 6. And I know it's about how many shots you had on target and ultimately how many goals you scored, and it ends 1-1. But look at our form. Look at our recent form. The last 5 games, 1 win in 5, 3 defeats, 1 draw. It's sad. It really is sad. Like we said before, if this was FIFA, simulate for the rest of the season. If it's on FM, go on holiday, right? But why not? Honestly, why not go on holiday? Because this season is just, I would want it to be over. I really do. Again, I want to talk about David De Gea briefly as well, because we got into quite a bit of a debate the other day, didn't we? Was it the Monday show with Flex, myself, Marcel, and Cam about the David De Gea stuff. And I don't want to spend too much time on David De Gea because I think it's a really mute point, honestly. But you watch games like that tonight, and I really do struggle to wrap my head around it, honestly. Because, look, David De Gea, is he the best in terms of distribution in the Premier League? No. And I saw there was this Twitter thread the other day, and it basically had like, oh, this was David De Gea's, and they were basically distribution stats or coming up punching stats or, pressing stats, if you will, or passing stats under Louis van Gaal. And the last time that a coach who wanted the keeper to play more with their feet was at the club, this is what David De Gea did. And of course, all the stats were terrible because that's what the thread's about. The thread's about how David De Gea is terrible at distribution. And his distribution isn't good. Like, it's not. That's not his strong suit at all. I'm with you. And with the way that football is evolving, and with the way that football has changed, and especially in an Eric Ten Hag system where the goalkeeper almost has to be a sweeper or has to be of sort of almost a deeper centre back, but with gloves on, should we be looking in 2 or 3 years to be replacing David De Gea with a goalkeeper that's more technically proficient? Absolutely. I 100% agree because the position does need evolving. And if we were a side that, we pretty much every position was perfect, I would be saying absolutely, let's look at replacing De Gea this summer. But that's not living in reality, folks. The reality that we're living in is that essentially maybe 9 or 10 positions in that team need replacing first. The analogy I've used before, I will continue to use it again. The house is on fire and you're worried about that doorbell. It's just not working. The doorbell is David De Gea. The house that's on fire is Manchester United's starting 11. That's the situation there. So, people can say that David De Gea, his distribution is terrible and all this kind of stuff. But I saw a guy whose main job, by the way, is making sure the ball does not go in the net, save us several times tonight. And I just don't see how you can watch a game like that and say, David De Gea, we need to get rid of him. We need to get rid of him. People will talk about wages, and maybe that's fair. In terms of the wages he's on, in comparison to other goalkeepers in the league, he's on way more wages than Alisson or Ederson. That's a Manchester United problem. That's not a David De Gea problem. That's a Manchester United that's been mismanaged financially for a decade under Ed Woodward. That report came out today. Ed Woodward just gave out contracts like, sweets to kids or whatever because he felt like it improved their resale value. That's what he did. He was so backwards in his mentality as a banker that he felt, well, if they've got contracts, then we can sell them for more. But when did you sell them for more, Ed? When did you make money on a player? You never did. You never made a profit on a player. You never sold a player for a huge transfer fee or anything like that, despite how inflated contracts you gave them. Again, David De Gea's wage is not his fault. That's Manchester United's fault. And people can say, oh, his wage is too high, we need to get rid of him. And as I mentioned the other day, Cam was saying we should get the Brighton goalkeeper or the Brentford goalkeeper. And my response to that is, if you get the Brighton goalkeeper, if you get the Brentford goalkeeper, and you put him into that Manchester United side tonight, we lose that game because they don't make the saves that David De Gea does, which goes to show my point that at the moment, it's not on De Gea. It should be about other people around him. And yeah, in a couple of years, when we have had 2 or 3 transfer windows and we have brought in better players and we are playing better stuff, that's when you go, okay, David, your time's up. Now it's time for a younger goalkeeper to come in, a more technically proficient goalkeeper to come in, because that's the sort of, not the cherry on top, but kind of just that's the direction we're going in. Right now, if you look at that Manchester United side and you say, replace the goalkeeper, I would say, well, we might even be worse off. Honestly, we'll probably be worse off if we but we've got a goalkeeper that can, ping passes. Yeah, but he can't save the ball. And he's picking the ball out of the net because guess what? We're conceding a shit ton of chances every single game. Joel Dixon says, what did you think of Bruno's performance? I mean, it wasn't as bad as he was at the weekend. Against Arsenal, he was awful. He was really poor. And I don't just mean that because of the penalty miss. I just felt that he was wasteful. And he did that in certain instances tonight, but he will always do that. As I mentioned, he's a player that plays in the 87th minute throughout the entirety of the game. he constantly will try those long passes or those crossfield passes or those Hollywood passes when it's not necessary. There was one point in the second half where he does this sometimes. Like, he'll just get past the ball, and I think it's just Ronaldo is the only guy who's up front, and he's trying this like long pass to Ronaldo. He just smashed his foot through it, and it must have gone like 50 feet in the air or something ridiculous and come down. And it's like, what? What were you looking for during that period? I don't know what he was looking for. He was okay. Like, he had a chance in the first half where he tried to find Ronaldo, and for the life of me, I don't know why he tried to find Ronaldo in that situation. He should have had a shot. Like a lot of people, he still looks bereft, I think, of confidence, especially after the weekend. It's just, I think, this is what's crazy, is that if this was earlier on in the season and Bruno Fernandes did a performance like he did tonight, I think a lot of people would be really on to him and say, man, Bruno is really poor today. And he was giving the ball away and he was being petulant, all that kind of stuff. But because so much has happened this season, and especially in comparison to the last game, you watch it and you go, oh, he wasn't as bad today. That's just everyone. That's everyone. And again, watching this Man United side right now, it's tough. There are 3 games left for the remainder of the season. Every single game is a dead rubber. Every single game is really difficult to get up for. Was it Brentford on Monday? Last game of the season, I think, is against Palace, isn't it? One before that is Brighton. They're games that are really tough to get up for. They're games that are tough, frankly, to care that much about. Everyone, including the fans, including the players, are obviously just looking towards next season. And again, I can almost understand that to an extent, but that still does not give anyone an excuse not to try. You know, people will still buy tickets to go and watch them against Brentford, against Brighton, against Palace. People will still, across the world, get up at crazy hours to watch them play. People will still support them. People will still back them. The very, very, very least they can do is try. And the fact that they're not trying, that's again, really disappointing. And there is just this black cloud over this club right now, every single match day. Because you think about it, I certainly do. You know, you go into these games, or you realize it's game day, because a lot of people I saw on social media or in the comments in the live chat were saying, I forgot Man United were even playing today. I really did, until they saw Flex's road trip came and they went, oh, I forgot there was a game on, because that's just how disconnected they are at the moment. But before the game, you have to have this sort of conversation with yourself where you go, what's going to happen again? You know, am I going to be disappointed? Am I going to be angry? Am I going to be upset? And you know that you are. But then once you see it happening before your eyes, that's the sad situation, isn't it? And that's Man United. That's Man United this season. And maybe it's just because the summer hasn't happened yet. Maybe it's because we're still in the final days of this just disappointing past 12 months or so. But even for next season, honestly, even for next season, I almost struggle to be optimistic. And maybe that's me being really negative. Maybe it's because it's just 11:15 over here, and it's been a long day and it's been a long season as a Manchester United fan. But I do even still have this just, I think we've got a really good coach next season, and I'm happy to hear, I'm not even sure if it's been confirmed yet, but his backroom staff coming in, all that kind of stuff, that's great. But there are still problems, and there are still players there that I think lack commitment and lack effort. And Eric Ten Hag can't work miracles. And I think we'd be remiss if we would be overly optimistic coming into next season. I think there is absolutely some cautious optimism in that maybe we're heading in the right direction, but we're still, you know, the proof is going to be in the pudding, certainly. And especially with the transfer window. We know players are going to be leaving, but if we get a couple of good signings and we see maybe on the preseason tour, we see some style of play, maybe there'll be a little bit of, okay, maybe we're going to see, you know, something happen. But as of right now, it just, every game, every game you watch of Manchester United at the moment, if I was Eric Ten Hag, certainly as a fan watching, every game, the job for Eric Ten Hag just seems to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And the conversation about this is a big job just seems just to escalate more and more and more every single game. And it must for him as well. He must be thinking, this is a tough one. Super chat from Stephen. Appreciate the contribution. Says Rangnick to be announced as Austria coach. Apparently so, according to multiple reports. Ralf Rangnick will be announced as the Austria coach in the next 24 to 48 hours. I mean, whilst I don't think he's actually come out and confirmed it himself, he essentially has said that I'm definitely going to be consulting for Manchester United next season. It would leave space for another job, though. So I think he's basically saying, yeah, I am going to be the Austria manager for the national side, but it's not going to stop me from being my consultant for Manchester United, because that job's so not taxing at all that I can be a national team coach, which again I think speaks volumes about what he's actually going to be doing next season. Oh, I just saw that bicycle kick. Who was that from? Jared Bowen. Oh, it was unbelievable. So unlucky. I just had the Europa League highlights on because I wanted to see. There was more exciting games, but we've got to get used to it as well. Probably scouting the competition for next season. That was unbelievable. He's a good player, Jared Bowen. Pat Thor says, hypothetical question, Owen. Who would you vote as your captain for next season? I mean, we don't even know if that whole voting thing is going to happen. That's what Rangnick has said that he's done in the past. There's a German phrase for it, where his clubs, he's basically got the dressing room to vote for the captain. I think with the idea being the person that gets the most votes, the dressing room likes the most. So you'd have a more united dressing room, and that's the person they look to as the leader anyway. So I can kind of understand the logic behind it. I'm not sure how I totally feel. I always think the captain should be appointed by the manager. And I think you have to be really, really careful, especially at Manchester United, with giving these players any form of power, because player power is completely out of control in that dressing room. I think if there was a vote tomorrow and Eric Ten Hag said to the Man United players, who do you want to be the captain? Who do you vote to be the captain? I don't think Harry Maguire gets that vote. I think some people probably would vote for him, his friends, and would think, oh, Harry's doing a good job. I don't want to see Harry get hurt. But I don't think Harry would get the vote. I think Ronaldo probably would get that vote. Who can they respect more in that dressing room than Cristiano Ronaldo? Who would people look to more than Cristiano Ronaldo? I think Ronaldo would get that vote. And honestly, I'm not adverse to it. I know people will say, but he's only going to be there for a season. Why make him captain for a season? I say, why not? Because you look at that squad, who else? Who else can be the captain? People can say Bruno Fernandes. I still think there's questions about his attitude at times. And give it to Ronaldo for a season. And during that season, you find who that next long-term captain is going to be. Maybe it is going to be Bruno Fernandes. Maybe Bruno's the vice captain for next season. But I would give it to Ronaldo. I mean, as I said, I've been a bit of an advocate for David De Gea as the captain. I know people don't like goalkeepers as captain. I know some people don't like David De Gea for whatever reason. But he did an interview before the game with Sky, and I thought it was very good. He's done several interviews after the games recently, and I think it's been very good. He's got tenure. He's got respect. Why not? Why not David De Gea? The issue is when it comes to the captaincy, of course, is that any captain at any club, it should be obvious who that person should be as the captain, and it's not. At Manchester United, Roy Keane made a great point about it the other day. He was talking to Jamie Carragher about being a Premier League captain, and I think one of the questions he was asked is Roy Keane the greatest Premier League captain of all time? He's certainly up there. And his point is that, he was in a dressing room where there were legitimately 5 people who could have been the captain of Manchester United. If it wasn't him, at times it was David Beckham. It could have been Paul Scholes. It could have been Gary Neville. It was eventually Gary Neville. It was Ryan Giggs. It was whoever it may be. There were several people, Peter Schmeichel. There were several people in that Manchester United dressing room that could have been the captain on a permanent basis. At Manchester United right now, there aren't. I mean, I don't know if there's anyone that should be the captain on a permanent basis. That's the problem. So, yet again, it's a Premier League point. Come on for Manchester United. We're on to the next match, which is Monday against Brentford. Again, at Old Trafford. Is actually the last Old Trafford home game of the season, which is going to be again, tonight was a really strange atmosphere, wasn't it? And I think we're going to probably see more of the same, a very flat atmosphere. In every game that's remaining this season, honestly, I'm not going to pretend to be shocked if we lose. If we let's be honest, if we lose against Brentford, Old Trafford, it'll be embarrassing, and it would be bad. Wouldn't be shocking because if we play like we did tonight, Brentford could beat us. 100% Brentford could beat us tonight. For whatever reason, Chelsea just weren't really at it that much. But Brentford, when Christian Eriksen, he would take the piss with that amount of space in midfield. Who's to say they were? So we'll wait and see. We go again, as all of the social media posts say. Anyway, guys, look, I'm out of here. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Fan view should be going up shortly with Flex and all of the United View community and family outside of Old Trafford. As I mentioned, be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Peace.